Hey everybody, Art Burns here. Hope you're all doing well today. I'm coming at you from inside again today because it's a little bit windy out and it's hard to hear me out there. And plus, this background kind of has this weird like '70s album cover look to it. If I move my glare here, I dig that. I hope you do too. So I wanted to share some thoughts about compassion today, which are not necessarily the things that always come to mind when we think and talk about compassion. So obviously, the practice of compassion itself is to reach out to consider others, right? The idea of compassion, the actual word compassion comes from the Latin compassus, which means to suffer with, right? And so that's the idea of compassion, is that we're reaching out of ourselves and we're connecting to someone, and we're trying to, help them in a way to relieve their suffering, right? And that's the bottom line of what compassion is. But what I try to remind people a lot of times is we're practicing compassion is it's not just what you're going to do for another, right? That actually practicing compassion has some very, very important benefits to ourselves, right? Among these benefits are stress reduction, as I talk about a lot, but also very, very important levels of brain integration happen as we're practicing compassion. Okay, this has been shown in several research studies with people in MRIs and really, and also, vital signs of their bodies and their physiology. It's just shown that a natural level of integration and sort of homeostasis happens as we practice compassion. But there's still another sense that actually gets back into the outward, feeling of compassion, the outward dimension of compassion. And that is that when we cultivate this compassion, as we consider, people outside of ourselves and we help the inside of ourselves, right? What happens is now we're presenting a whole different kind of, whole different posture, a whole different profile of ourselves to the world, right? And when we can, again, when we allow compassion to kind of, lead us and kind of, lead our decision making, lead our actions, and when we allow this attitude of compassion to be this sort of, kind of motivator for us, then when we do interact with other people, there's a really, really strong benefit to them, even if we're not physically sort of, contemplating their compassion for specific people, right? Like when you go to the grocery store, for instance, and you're interacting with the cashier at the checkout line, right? You might not be considering that cashier as an object of your compassion, right? I mean, you don't know that person very well. You don't know what suffering they might have. You don't know, whether they require your compassion, even though everybody kind of always requires compassion, but it might not be an active thing. But by the same token, as you work on this compassion of yourself, then the way that you present yourself to that person is something that's going to resonate with them. Okay, it's called limbic resonance, right? And it's something that happens sort of in the middle area of our brain that people pick up on certain subtleties of tones of voice, of facial expressions, of just, people can, in other words, pick up on your intention. And as you practice compassion and you develop this as an attitude that you bring into the world, again, it's not just going to help you. It's not going to just help the people who are the actual object of your compassion, people who are suffering, people who are afraid, and the like, but it's also going to impact those sort of neutral experiences that you have where you wouldn't expect it. And then that is going to further, help you, because you're going to get this kind of back and forth with people, and you're going to have a limbic resonance. It goes both ways, this limbic resonance, right? And so the idea here is that compassion becomes very cyclical, right? It becomes a very, you can look at it as a circle, right? It's, you're offering it to someone else, you're gaining from it for yourself, and then they're gaining from it because you're gaining from yourself, and the cycle goes on. And so as you're practicing compassion, as you're going through these really stressful times we're living in right now, consider that. Consider the fact that it's not just for you, but it's also for all the people who interact with you, who experience you, that are going to benefit in really, really important ways just from this attitude of compassion that you're developing. So if you have any questions about this, or if you want to know about some very simple practices you can do to develop this level of compassion, hit me up with a comment, send me a direct message, and let's talk about this, because it's really simple, and the return on the investment that you get for the time spent doing this is amazing. I mean, anybody would tell you that it's a good deal. All right, everybody, from my 1970s album cover, I'm going to let you go now, and I wish you well, and thanks for watching, and I'll be back again tomorrow. I wish you well. Take care.